Hi, okay, here's what I think is the last modeling tutorial. Now you'll notice the obvious absence of the ear. I'm not going to have you guys model the ear just because you've got a lot on your plate already to get all this done, I think. Um, but I hopefully will have time to make a tutorial for doing the ear. I've modeled the ear for this person, but I haven't actually documented it. One of the problems when I do the ear is I always do it a little differently each time. I don't really have a formula for doing it. So, but the last one I did worked out well. So I'll try and replicate that and make a document of it. And if you want to do the ear, that would be wonderful. But I'm not going to ask you to necessarily do it. Um, if you are going to do the ear, I would suggest doing it at this stage now, before doing reflecting and creating the other side of the head. But on to present business. What we are going to do is make the other side of the face now. So let's say we've finished all our tweaking and we've got the face in the state that we want. Now we're going to duplicate this side and just reverse scale it. So the X direction is this direction here, the way my mouse is going. If I just turn off my cranium and mandible, tissue depth markers and eyes, you can see the little red arrow here. The manipulator for this object is the red arrow, and that indicates the X direction. So we have to select this object, duplicate it, and reflect it in X. So I want to make sure we've deleted all our history. We've frozen our transformations, as I mentioned in an earlier tutorial. And now we want to go to Edit, Duplicate Special, and now open the option box. Make sure your settings have been reset, so go under Edit in the pop-up window, Reset Settings. And the only thing we have to change here is scale, the first scale number to -1. So these numbers, these columns of rows indicate X, Y, and Z. So we want X to be scaled in -1. So it's going to be exactly the same size, but just reflected in the X direction. So if I say Duplicate Special, all of a sudden we have an entire face. Now there are a few things we still have to fix up. Some obvious things like this little seam. When you get seams like this, it's because these two edges here don't quite match up. These two vertices. So if I select these two vertices and look at them in the side view, they're not. It's not really shaped quite correctly, but anyway, it's not worried about it. They're not on the same level here. They're not lined up in this view. If they were lined up in this view, we'd have a nice flat plane going across this new boundary line that we've created. So there are a number of ways that we can fix this, but I think what we'll do is fix it after we merge those two sides together. So let's not worry about those little creases right now. You may have some in your nose. You may not. I've got one in my lip, one under the nose here. So now, but what we really have to test is, well, we know that nobody's face is perfectly symmetrical. So if we turn on the eyes, for example, you'll see that although it fits the eye here, it doesn't fit the eye here at all. And if we turn on the tissue depth markers, you can see that it fits the tissue depth markers on this side, but not all of them on this side. So we have to go in and start moving some points around to accommodate the other side of the face. It's not as hard as you may think. We've got the whole structure of the face here. We just have to move some points over and make sure everything is still smooth after moving them. So we may want to turn on the cranium and the mandible to assess certain things. But for now, I'm just going to move this eye over. So let's go into the front view here. But look, it looks like a pretty good face when it's all together. The nose seems a little wide, but I expected a wide nose. I may tweak it to get a slightly different nose shape after I combine these two sides. But for now, let's just work on this eye. Go into 4 mode and turn off those eyes for a second. So you can see how it doesn't match my drawing anymore. So I'm just going to select a bunch of vertices here. Go into shaded mode again. I don't really want these ones up here, just ones on the inside of the orbit. It looks like we got them all. I've probably got some in the back here too. Yep. So make sure I deselect those. Go into the front view. I just want to move this over to match. You don't really have to move it too much to match up. Make sure that looks good. there's a bit of a gap there. It's got to move over a little bit more. So it should fit. And you just have to make sure that things fit alongside of the nose here. And turn on the cranium. I just want to experiment with moving some of these things over a little bit. So let's just look in the front view again. Turn off the cranium. See that this is slightly different here. I may want to select some of these points in the canthus and move them down a little bit, just to match the drawing a little more. And if your drawing isn't this detailed, well, you'll just have to figure out and see if there are any real differences you can see in the skull. Just check it in the... It still looks reasonably true. Now you can see a lot of the tissue depth markers are not poking through here. So you got these ones, so it's way too wide here. If we look in the view, you can see the whole side of the head is really kind of out of whack. So I may want to just grab a whole bunch of these points, not around the eye, but just move some of this stuff over. Now you have to go in through the perspective window and make sure you didn't make anything really crazy when you did that. But you can see I can just select a whole bunch of stuff. I made a bit of a dent in the head here. Just going to make sure some of these things aren't too flattened out now. But it doesn't take long to start making these things match up. So I'm going to select some of these points. Just move them in. I want to still maintain my masseter muscle definition here. Maybe move these ones in a little bit. Always making sure I don't select things in the background too much. Maybe it's maybe a little too much. Anyway, so you can see pretty quickly start to get in there. Now I'm missing the point here that should be poking through. Oops. A couple of points there, so I'm going to have to resculpt this side of the face a little bit. But this is the important stuff. These are the things that make us look like individuals, so you want to try and capture some of these differences on either side of the face without introducing too much weirdness. So again, this is just more of the tweaking stage. You can spend a lot of time driving yourself crazy, but you just want to go in, and I'm just going to go and look at some of these things here. And if you have a more refined drawing, this will be a little easier. Now I don't want to finalize any of this stuff until I check it with the cranium actually showing, to see if it's actually poking through. But no, that looks pretty good. Let me look down here. If I turn on the mandible, go into X-ray mode, you can see that my mandible's got a bit of a funny jump there, so it's a little different here. I may want to try and capture that here. Oops, sorry. But let's just go ahead and combine these two sides. So you can tweak it. You can always tweak it more afterwards. Oops. After you've combined it into a single object. And so don't worry if you don't get it all totally sorted out here. This looks like weird and bulgy. I'm not taking my own advice. I can't stop. Okay, anyway. So let's say we've got it in pretty good shape. now we want to combine these two sides into a single object. So select one, select the other. So select one, shift select the other. Make sure that's all that you have selected. I'm going to turn off my cranium and mandible just in case. And everything else, 2 shift markers, eyes, just to make sure I'm not selecting those by accident. Oh, she's got a funny ridge in her head here. I should have fixed that before, but I'll fix it after I combine. So we want to go to Mesh, Combine. And now this is a single polygon object. However, you'll notice that it doesn't really match up perfectly here. If we go into vertex mode, you see we've got separate vertices here. Even when it looks like we just have one vertex, there's actually more than one selected there. They're just overlapping each other. So if I select what looks like one vertex here in the channel box, it says CVs click to show. So these are control vertices. If I click on that, it shows me I've got actually 2 selected. They each have individual numbers. So the next thing we have to do is merge those vertices.